Hello and welcome to another Oxford Sandy and Black Pig Group podcast. As usual, I'm your host Andrew O'Shea. You can probably hear I'm recording this podcast from my lambing and farrowing shed, and you can hear the sow in the background sounding a bit hungry, but it's too early for her tea yet. And there's goats as well, and sheep all looking quite quiet. But yes, very cold outside, lots of snow, as I saw in the news. You keepers up there in Scotland, seeing temperatures this past week of minus 20 plus, which is, wow, incredibly cold. I think we hit minus 9 here in Lincolnshire, so can appreciate how cold it is. Not having running water outside for the last week or so has been a bit difficult. But we all fight on. So this podcast is a replay of the Scot EID talk with Bob Yuill and Josie Firth from Scot EID, and the hosted event that we did Friday before last. It's very, very interesting talk, and I hope you enjoy it. But before we get to that, a few updates. So those of you who know that now we're registered as a charity, we're eligible for Amazon Smile, and we have signed up to that, and I've just got the quarterly figure through, and we've received a payment of £62.12, which is very pleasing, and thank you to all those that support us through the Amazon Smile application. As up and coming events, we have Louise Blenkhorn, who's a vet, doing a evening chat with us on Zoom on March the 11th, talking about farrowing and a few other bits and pieces. So keep an eye on the group and Twitter to see when that comes out for you to register. And in addition to that, Lucia Gregson, who used to work for AHDB, now works for Pilgrims UK, is going to come and do a chat for us on artificial insemination. So I think that's going to be very interesting to find out more about that. I hope you find that quite useful. And also, those that you've probably seen on the group, there is a Cotswold seed offer for the pig rooting mix. If you're interested in the rooting mix for your pig beds, please have a wander over to the group and have a look for the details there, or reach out to Kim directly. So I won't hold you any further. I will hand you over to Bob and Josie.
Yeah, a wee brief introduction. I'm managing director of Scot EID, and I'll give you a little bit of the overview of Scot EID. And Josie is the office manager, and we're based up in Huntly, which is between Aberdeen and Inverness. So if I look out my window, I've got about 2.5 feet of snow here. Josie doesn't have so much because she's nearer the coast, but I'm a little bit up the hill. So, and we've got the great frustration of all the ski slopes are all absolutely full of snow, and there's nobody until lockdown comes off. Just a little introduction to Scot EID. Scot EID is itself is owned by Scottish Agricultural Organisation Society, or SCOS. Which is owned by all the agricultural cooperatives in Scotland. We have about 60 or 70 different co-ops who own us everything from shellfish to milk to pigs, and all the rest of it, vegetables and that kind of thing. And we have a special relationship with Scottish Government, and we operate and run Scot EID as a joint venture really between government and the industry, which is slightly different than you'll probably see from DEFRA and the way that they operate the systems. So, the bottom line for us is that the ownership of the data with respect to movement data and registration data, and that belongs to the people who provide the data. And, we have within our terms and conditions of use, we have a method by which people agree to share their data, and that includes government. And it allows us to have a lot more flexibility in the way that we drive and develop data and solutions for the industry. Completely and utterly focused on disease. And our relationship with Scottish Government is Animal Health and Welfare Division. It comes under the chief vet, lady called Sheila Voas. And at the minute, we're spending quite a bit of time working with Livestock Information System, which is the new build in England. for the multi-species system, and also we touch base with Wales and Ireland, and we all have slightly different systems. We started with sheep way back in 2006-07, and it was a little bit of hot potato because it was about electronic identification in sheep. It's probably something that might come to pigs at some point, and we can maybe just pick that up later on. And it was like a bit of a hot potato or a poison chalice or whatever. Nobody wanted to touch it. The industry didn't want it. However, we took it on because of European regulation, and we said that we could make it work, which we did. And from that, actually, the next development was pigs, to look at pigs. And pigs has been a little bit of a trailblazer for us because of the way that we manage movement there, which will start to spread across to the other species. And we'll pick that up later on, but basically it's pre-notification of a move and then confirmation of an on-move at the end. And that's not carried out by any of the other species. So it's quite unique to pigs. After pigs, and I think I've got this the right way around, Josie, I do get mixed up because I've been here too long, but was cattle. And we have very highly developed systems for cattle, particularly for bovine viral diarrhea, for BVD, and the whole BVD eradication program across Scotland. And after 7-8 years, it's almost gone. We only have 10 or so farms now with persistently infected animals. But coming back to the disease core of where we are, there's a kind of interesting state going on for pigs, of which you'll know about, and I probably don't need to reiterate it, but market issues with the food service market disappearing in this last year, COVID in plants. Our Brechin plant, a big plant here in Scotland, is closed, and it starts to open up slowly again on Monday. If you look across to likes of China, we now have a new variant in African swine fever. And there's also a variant on PED, porcine epidemic diarrhea. And our systems here have been built completely designed for what we call real-time movement. In the old days, inverted commas, when we were dealing with foot and mouth, the problem is that the movement systems were about 14 days behind time. And even then it was complicated because it was paper-based. The European Union, they introduced the sheep EID, and the reason for doing that was because it was a species that spread foot and mouth and nobody knew about it. Okay, so they really wanted to, and their movement systems for sheep were appalling. In pigs, it's slightly different. They are affected obviously by foot and mouth, but they carry a lot of virus, and it's from there that the virus can spread, and that's why pigs move to what we call a vector move with pre-notification and confirmation at both ends, which is a fairly amazing system, and we'll go into that. But on top of that, we won't have time to show you tonight, but we developed a mapping systems, particularly for PED. And the reason for that is that if there's an outbreak of PED, you really want to know the associated holdings that are close to the PED outbreak. But that's quite complex because many farms have more than one holding, or they have premises which are away from the main holding. Okay, so when you draw, say, a 5-kilometer ring around a PED outbreak, there may be holdings within that 5 kilometers who also have holdings outside of it. And you don't know precisely where the pigs might be. So we developed a mapping system so that if there's ever a PED outbreak or any other outbreak for disease, because we use it across the board, is that we can get the spread of that disease immediately, and be able to, shut down and close down. Because when there is a disease outbreak, the main issue is the whole industry being closed down. And if you can isolate the disease spread, then you can allow parts of the industry to open up. And that's absolutely fundamental for pigs, because the way pigs become overweight and out of grade very, very quickly, you don't want to close down an industry or for any length of time, particularly for pigs. Not so for cattle so much, and not so for sheep. But pigs, there's a real issue just now, for instance, because of COVID and some plants of pigs going overweight, and how we get, actually there were some trucks turning up, which were, I think there were the truck loads were 3 tons overweight, because they loaded the usual amount of pigs. And when they went over the scales, they went, oh my God, we've got, these are big double or triple deckers coming in. So I'll be delighted to take some questions just now, and then I'll hand over to Josie, and she'll share some screens and just take you through some of the way that we deal with pig movement and registration. So delighted to take any questions just now. And I hope my Scots accent rapid fire doesn't, you've been able to understand some of it at least.
Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, so Clemens is asking, what does PED stand for?
It's porcine epidemic diarrhea, and it affects little pigs really. It's fairly destructive. We've managed to keep it out, but it is there, and it's in Europe. We have what's called the Scottish Pig Disease Control Centre, rolls off the tongue. And one of their main jobs is keeping a very watchful eye out for the likes of disease outbreak, likes of PED. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions before Bob hands over to Josie? Okay, thank you very much. Carry on then. Thank you.
So what I thought I'd do is just go and show you a pig movement on Scot EID. I don't know if any of you actually use Scot EID or registered, but I just thought I'd get on there and talk you through the key points that we need to do for a pig move. So, share.
Here comes the technical bit.
Yeah, it is technical. Right, so everybody should be able to see Scot EID.
Yeah.
This is the home page here. If any of you are registered with Scot EID yourselves, you'll be able to see this is a news feed in the main bit here. On the left-hand side, if we go down, we've got pigs and the pig movements. And what I'll do just now is just go in and record a pig move. And this is exactly as you would be seeing it if you were registered on Scot EID to do a move yourselves. So the first bit that is important is to the identification of your pigs. Now, with the induction of Scot EID doing the movements and the new legislation, pigs had to be, they could be temporarily identified, and that means they can move within farms on a paint mark, as you already know, or if they're going to a market or an abattoir, they need to have a permanent mark. And if they're over 12 months, they can be individually identified. Pig marks are, the ear tags have to be a sort of a solid kind of ear tag that can withstand heat. So normally it's the little metal ear tags that are used. So the first thing, you've got the different options. So if with the little tick box here, you can choose individual. And if you just enter the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, it would add it up for you on the way down. If you had a hard mark or a temporary mark, it's just a free red spot, whatever here. Or alternatively, they can move on a batch, and you can just type in the batch mark that you would have. It can either be your hard mark, or if you're part of a big producer, you will get a slap mark, which can be sort of letters, or that's given to you by the places like Caro. I don't know if you've heard of these, the bigger producers, and they give you sort of big slap marks that are associated with your holding. So we're just going to put in a temporary mark here and there. The next thing, you all have your own holding numbers. I'm just going to use a dummy one here, what we got for the office. And adding it in here. And the thing that comes up, you can see that the addresses come up, and this is actually our office address here. We've got a CPH associated especially for that. It pulls the address in, but also down the bottom here, the departure details are, the address is automatically pulled in. Now, everything that's got a little star next to it is something that's required to be entered for a pig movement. So this is a departure CPH entered here. If you're putting it to a market or an abattoir, you can use the little select button here on the right hand side, and you've got the option of choosing a Scottish abattoir, and they're all listed here. Or if you're going down to England, you've got an abattoir here, you can choose there, or markets, various markets. I'll choose, I'm just going to choose put in our CPH just for the purposes here, just to carry on moving down. Here, so this would be classed as just for example, a farm-to-farm movement. Okay, the next key detail is the date. Now you can pre-notify movements. Movements can be put onto Scot EID up to 2 weeks in advance, but they must be on by the day of the move. So we can see here that we're allowed to date up until 2 weeks ahead, but we'll just take this. And then reference number, that can be, if you've got your own specific reference number, we just put our initials in here for our own purposes, just to, because it's something that you have to put in. Description, this is not essential, but there's a little drop down here if you wish to put in the description of the pigs that you're moving and what kind they were. So we can just say that we're moving weaners. And also the assurance number, if you're farm assured, you can enter this here. And if you're part of a big pig producers, then that would automatically come up connected with your slap mark that you entered up here at the top. This element here is just for us because I'm in here as an admin move. So move further down, we can fill in the information, we can put in our names, and then the telephone number if you so wish to put this in here for Huntley as well. And then the contact details for the destination. It's always very useful for us if the destination details are fully entered, the name and contact number. Keepers are required to confirm that they've received the move within 3 working days of receiving them. So what we do is just we keep an eye on that, and we'll contact keepers. If we see that moves have gone over the 3 days, we just give them a quick call. And so it's quite useful if you're doing this yourself, if you can enter the telephone number. Scot EID is there to take it sort of one of the purposes. You can phone it. Not everybody wants to use or has access to Scot EID, so you can actually register yourself and do the moves yourself. But if you don't have that, we still you can phone us in. You may have already done that and spoken to us in the office here, and we can record the move on your behalf. We can email you a copy of the movement document. We still receive fax moves through, and on the odd occasion it can be posted, but that's very unusual. That's mainly for if people have received pigs, they sometimes send in the paper copy to us, but most of the time people will either call or they'll do it themselves online. Moving down here, we've got the food chain information. That's optional. There's this has just changed recently, and there's we always had the option of ticking for controlled housing and for the food chain information if your pigs complied. And just recently we had to introduce a new option, which is this top option here. And this has been put in place for the export of pigs now that we're no longer within the EU. The export of meat to countries out with ourselves, they need to know that they have this separation agreement. And you may have seen there was a letter sent out by Scottish Government regarding this change. Now, I don't know if this applies to any of you or not. If it does, yeah, then your meat goes out. Sorry, Bob, did you have something?
Yeah, yes, just to explain, this is to do with trichinella and trichinella testing. And so if you have certification through your vet visits that you have controlled housing, then the pigs when they go to slaughter, don't need to be trichinella tested. If they're, for instance, outside pigs and you don't have high fences to protect against deer, or you can't give any certification for what's called wild ungulates, that's why it says cloven-hoofed animals, but deer would be, in Scotland, deer would be the main one, then the pig meat has to be trichinella tested, and then a negative test before any of the meat can be exported or in fact actually consumed here. So just to give you, now we just put this in the last couple of 3 weeks, Josie, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's just actually this has just been changed in the last couple of weeks. This option, it used to be slightly different to this, and we do have a blank movement document that you could actually access on here, but it's not been updated as of yet, because I think there's still possibly a few changes connected to controlled housing. But once that's completed, the printable version will be there. But basically, you need to have a vet statement to be able to tick yes or no with regards to the cloven hoof option. Because the CPH I'm using isn't registered, then I'm not able to tick and confirm that they're from the wild cloven hoof separation.
Yeah, so we just press no there. Okay.
Yes, it's actually set up now automatic with regards to CPH, so it recognises people who have actually given us a vet statement with regards to the cloven hoof. So we've got a way of noting down that, and so it's kind of an automatic process now. So if you have sent in a vet statement with regards to the cloven hoof, then you'll have the option there. It'll say yes or no, but because I haven't, it just automatically comes up, and that's just a recent change that's gone in place. Okay.
So Josie, so are we saying that with this cloven hoof, so and it's to do with the trichinella testing, so regardless of the size of your herd or the pigs that go to, they have to get a vet certificate?
Yes,
So it's the holding which has the certification, not the individual pigs.
No.
So if you have, listen, it'll be different in different places, Kim, but up here, if a veterinary visit would sign a piece of paper to say that yes, there is separation or it's controlled housing, and that's displayed at the piggery. And if anybody needs a photograph of that, then they can provide a photograph of the signed document. Now, our larger our commercial units, I'm using that word advisedly, but the commercial units, have a quarterly visit from vets in any case, so all of them can be kept up to date. For smaller holdings, they would need us to talk to their vet for certification, so that they don't need to be trichinella tested. You can have them trichinella tested. It's not an expensive test.
Oh no, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you can just say, listen, we'll just get them trichinella tested, but it holds the carcass up in the and at the abattoirs, which may cost a little bit more. So I must say, Kim, I'm not entirely au fait with all of it, because this is so new,
Yes.
with respect to the effect in the supply chain. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a question here that's come through that's to ask, how high a fence do you need to be deer proof?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I have no doubt. I have no idea. Yeah, no, I would say you would need to demonstrate, if there's deer in the woods and things, I would say you would need to be, well over 6 feet. However, this bit is unclear, I would say, Kim, because if you go to parts of Spain, for instance, where there's a lot of outdoor pig production and a lot of wild cloven-hoofed animals, and very specific types of meat production, for specialised hams and things. We can't see how parts of Europe can actually even begin to comply with this. So they'll need to be all trichinella tested there. So I don't think the European legislation has been passed yet, but this is just for export. That doesn't mean we're out the EU now. This is just for export.
Yeah.
And also for China, because Chinese, you know, a lot of the fifth quarter elements have to go to China, so they require certification as well. Yeah.
With regards to the answer of how high the fence has got to be, I've been told 1.8 meters.
Oh, well, that's all right. That's shorter than me. That's just 6 feet. Well, their deer can go over 6 feet, no bother. That's for sure. Good answer, though. Yeah.
So have I got this? Sorry, I'm going on about this trichinella. So do you have to pay for the trichinella testing in Scotland, Bob and Josie?
That's my understanding, Kim. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's actually subsidised, the trichinella testing.
Yeah, I'm sure that's correct as well, Cara. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I had an incident the other week. I was putting off a young boar about a fortnight ago down to Munro's in Dingwall, and he's been inside for about the last 6 months. So I'd gone and ticked that he was in controlled housing, but then for some reason the system wouldn't allow me to do it because it kept saying that it wanted a veterinary certificate, which I didn't have. So I ended up going and just clicking no. But then when I actually got down to Munro's, I just explained the circumstances, and they were like, "Well, it's fine," because it's for my own consumption anyway. So they were like, "Oh, it's fine." So we got off with it. But that was the only flaw I found, was that if you do click the yes to the controlled housing, it seemed to then, the whole thing just seemed to want it didn't want to sort of really progress any further forward unless I could complete that I had a certificate.
There's been a bit of a crossover with the setting this up, because it came into place quite quickly at the end of December, and so getting the system ready in January to accept it. And also there's going to be a change with regards to the controlled housing. So at the moment it's only folk that have been controlled housing previously on the system that can take on controlled housing, but you could have just given us a recall and we could have helped you get through that bit. It was a bit of a pest that you got caught up with that, but hopefully going forward you shouldn't get caught up in that situation.
Yeah, we had to build this system through Christmas and New Year. Such was the panic to get it up and running by government. So
I have to say, in all other ways, the system is actually really, really easy to use. I've used some sort of systems over the years, but this one, I actually find is really user friendly and, quite self-explanatory.
Yeah, can I come in and just say that all the time we use Scot EID up here, obviously, and the system itself, I find, is so straightforward. And I just want to say, as you're both on the online now, that the people that I've dealt with in the office have been absolutely brilliant. If there's been a query or somebody hasn't been maybe a little bit quick enough on accepting a delivery, they've been on the phone and querying things, but they're genuinely, it's a great system and they work really well with us. So I've got nothing to complain about at all with that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. That the office is all due to Josie. So
no, seriously, sometimes the government departments and the systems they set up are can be very heavy going, shall we say? But no, it's great, and I honestly don't have a problem, and haven't had a problem with anything up to now. So. Let's hope long may it continue.
Oh, exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's good. And I think that's one of the good things about Scot EID. It is, we spend a lot of time. We can spend time and showing folk how to use it, because it is, as you say, it is simple to use. And once you've done it once, hopefully you'll be able to do it again. And so that's part of our job, is to sort of help people use the system as well. So that's what we're here for. Yeah. So
the next bit, Josie?
Yes, I was going to go down. The final bit that we've got here is the haulage information, which is also optional, but it's there, as an option to cover your carriage if you need to cover it. So you can either, there's a drop down to choose, you can either choose self-haulage, which if you're just a few pigs normally and it's close by, that's the case, or you can actually have a look up here for the haulage company and just click on one and it'll pull through the haulier QA number, and then you can just fill in the information yourself and complete like that. And then when it's submitted, just quickly, this is how the pig movement looks, which probably a lot of you will see, I've seen before. And as you can see there, the cloven hoof bit, it automatically comes up no when you haven't got the option to tick it. If it was ticked, then it would change, and then yeah, the information. And this is how it looks when you print it out. And so you can print it out. In the bottom section there is the bit that can be completed by the receiving keeper, or alternatively, it can be done as logging on to Scot EID or giving us a call and we can sign it off for you on the system.
So, sorry to interrupt you there. So we've had a few questions. One around how long before slaughter do pigs need to be in controlled housing to be classed as controlled? Is that from birth or from, is there a other definition of that? I know that's something in England and Wales that's not very clear.
Yeah, my understanding is it's from birth, Andrew.
From birth, okay.
Yeah.
So there's another question, that the whole trichinella testing thing, that comes up quite frequently, especially in down here as well. I mean, I believe the last case in the UK of trichinella was in like 1940 something. I could be wrong on that, yet we're still testing for it.
Yeah, it's a bit OTT, Andrew. Yeah, I think we still test for anthrax now and again as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the question is, I mean, are you aware of any positive trichinella tests in Scotland over the last? That was what's been asked by Clemency around. You know, there's no trichinella in her area, but it's still got tested. You know, so that's quite common down here as well. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think so, Andrew. I mean, I'm saying that slightly off the top of my head, but I've never come across it. But that doesn't mean to say that it hasn't happened.
Yeah,
I can certainly ask the authorities and just find out, you know, what the incidence has been. So,
yeah, I mean, I think they are very few and far between. But I mean, I know in France they've had a few cases and stuff like that, but I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, it's in all wild boar. Wild boar's the issue there in the continent.
Yeah,
where the wild boar is and where they touch, and we do have wild boar here, of course, in certain places. But yeah, I'll actually ask. It's a good question. I'll go and ask. I'll get a little bit of the history of it.
It'd be good to understand. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Josie. Thank you.
No, I've not got much more to say. I mean, I can show you how we receive a move, but it sounds like some of you already use the system already.
I would have a wee look at the number of moves that we have, Josie. I'm sure the pig keepers wouldn't mind if, you know, put the list up of what has to be confirmed, just to allow people to see how it looks on the system here.
Yeah, so this is all the pig moves that are recorded within Scotland, and you can see these are pre-notified moves that we've got here, and the if we can scroll down, well, we can see. Yeah,
you can maybe just explain each of the columns, really, Josie, okay. Just for people, because it's hard to see for some, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. So with regards to the columns here, we've got, obviously you've got your pre-notified status. Well, I'll take you onto another page in a minute. The action that you've got, the only option here is sign off. You can go in and edit a move if you wish, and you can go in and print it off again if you needed to, or of course cancel a move. Each movement's given its own reference number, and when you print off your movement document at the bottom, you'll see the reference number for each of the movements, and each have their own unique movement allocated to them there. Then lot date, self-explanatory. Quantity of pigs is in this column here. How they're identified, you can see here the various different forms of identification.
1,327 pigs. Wow, that's a lot of pigs to move in one.
Yeah, this will be one of your.
This will be babies. This will be Vian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see the right of the screen.
By the way, this is kind of confidential side of it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
we're all we're giving you a little bit of privilege here, just so you can see the kind of volume of pigs going through the system.
Yes, yes, and so you can see the departure CPH and the destination where they're going to. If we hover over, and if you've got your own login, you'll see your own moves, and you can see a little bit of where you've got the CPH number, and you'll get an idea of the address of where they're going to, and just by hovering over, you can see the uploader. It'll always probably be blank here because it'll always be yourselves that do this, but for us, we can see the different uploaders there via Scottish Pig Producers.
Yeah, and the red one there, Josie?
The red one there. So this has come up with an alert, and you may get this yourself. Moves can't go to a 7,000 CPH, which would be classed as a landless holding. I don't know if any of you come across that before. And also, this one's come up with an alert because it's not recognizing the holding. Now, it could be that the combination's maybe not right in the first two bits of the numbers, or it could be a brand new holding number, and our system isn't picking it up yet, doesn't have the details regarding that new holding number. So it might be that that's the reason there, that's got a little exclamation mark.
Yeah. Josie, somebody just asked about what do we mean by a column. It's just when we're looking at this page, it's separated into columns. I don't know how people are viewing it in their own machines, but
yeah. So I think the question was is who signs it off? I think that was the question.
We'll come to that.
Okay.
We'll come to
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. So hang on a minute. I'll just scroll down. You can see there's another holding number there. Oh. A lot of pre-notified moves. So a lot of the big producers like Scottish Pigs will they'll know their movements up ahead, and the moves will be going on for next week, and so a lot of these moves are obviously set up for next week. We'll just take it on to the next page and see.
So some of the factories, for instance, can use that data as well. What's pre-notified for coming in. So there's a relationship within the supply chain to make sure that the factories are happy about what's coming forward.
So obviously you've got your different statuses here that you can see where they've been received and where they've been consigned. So the consigned will go on by the departure CPH, and then the received will be completed by the destination CPH. And just to give you an example of a sign off, you would just click onto this button and it pulls up a new screen like this, and you'll see this is a consigning details and summary here on the left. On the right, you've got the receiving keeper's details. They can then confirm if there's any deaths or any changes to the number received, and then the date's put in, and then it's confirmed at the bottom. I'm not going to do this just now because I don't know for sure if they have, so I'll just go back and come out of that just now.
So I guess to answer the question raised by Clemency, it's the receiving keeper that signs that off rather than the person sending it.
Absolutely. We need the confirmation that the pigs have got to their destination. It's the correct place they've got to. It's correct quantity that's been received. And so that's up to the receiving keeper to let us know and confirm that that's the situation. And if anything's not right, then it can be changed, or they can confirm the correct details at that point.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the other thing I would point out is some of the moves go down to England, and the Scottish system does communicate with the English system. You've obviously had a chat from EAML2, and the moves go on for there. What I would say, there's a little bit of extra information. For example, can I find one that's not been completed? A little bit of extra information needs to be put on if a move's going down to England.
There's a 21, Josie. Oh, you've got it. Sorry, on you go.
Yeah. Yes, and what you'll see here is the system recognises that it's an English holding number because of the start of the CPH number, and then there's a drop down, and this is additional information that's required for their system down in England. They need this the movement type. They've clicked farm to farm, which we can see. It's fair enough.
Sorry, just to explain, we can do this fairly easily because Scottish Holdings, all Scottish Holdings, the county number starts at 66 and goes up to 98. Okay, so for counties, and counties in Scotland are unique. So any county that's outside like 51, we know that that's a holding south.
Yeah. So, so this is information, and it's required information if ever you move pigs down to England, and that has to be completed to allow it to communicate with EAML2, or it was called BPEX, and you can see here that that's actually been successfully sent to their system. And if there's any problems with the moves that go down, we get notified and we can try and correct the problem. And in the same sense, if you buy any pigs from England, then they come up onto our system from England. They have a slightly different way of dealing with it. The moves are notified on EAML2 system, and then they actually need to do a second confirmation when they actually, on the day of the move, they actually need to confirm that the move has happened, and that's the point that it will come up on Scot EID, and you'll see the move on Scot EID.
Is there a delay at all, Josie, with regards to getting the paperwork sorted out, whether they come from Scotland over the border to England or England over to Scotland, or does it?
No, there shouldn't be a delay. It's sort of, I think they communicate every 10-15 minutes, it gets transferred over. The only delay sometimes is if they're coming up from England, the second confirmation isn't done. And that's if you go on and you can't find the move to sign off and say you've received the pigs, you can give us a call and we can communicate with their system, their team there. And very often all we need is the reference number on the move that's come up from England, and it allows them to put the confirmation through for us, so then the receiver up here can confirm they've received them correctly.
Yep.
The reason I ask is because I know that we may be having, he tried to join us tonight, but he hasn't got any reception, but he's on the Isle of Lewis. Oh, yeah. So he's going to be, or somehow going to be, bringing pigs in and up to from England and coming up into Scotland. And there's another chap as well on the Isle of Arran as well. So I was just thinking, how is I suppose the process is just pretty straightforward and there's no glitches at all.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. The keepers down there, when they can sign them off, they need to notify the system, and and that second confirmation needs to happen in England. But most of the keepers there know that they've got to do it. It's just their way of dealing with it down there. So yeah,
brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, can we scroll down to any late notifications, Josie? Because this is one area in the office that we do. I don't know if there are any.
What do you mean by people who haven't signed off yet?
People haven't signed off, but beyond the date, beyond the time, because they've got to do it within, is it 4 days? Is it? I can't remember.
3 days. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Oh gosh, we'll need to go back.
Yeah, there's a cancelled move. Is it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting probably to this stage here. So there'll be a few here. There's a way that we can pull off the information, and we sort of put it onto a sheet, and we can go through and we can just confirm the ones. So there's a few ones here which are waiting for sign-offs, and sometimes it's just a case of there's a new pig keeper and they've never kept pigs before. So that's our opportunity to also make sure that they've got set up properly. Obviously, they need to have a holding number to receive pigs, but they also need to, pig keepers need to register with Animal Health that they're a pig keeper. So not everyone always knows how to that they need to do that. So it gives us a prompt there if we're sort of chasing up for getting pigs signed off. And it also gives us an opportunity to make sure that everybody knows what they need to do with regards to tagging and what they're going to do when they move them off. And make sure they understand the tagging rules, and they know that they can contact us if they need any more information, basically.
Yeah.
So Clemens has just asked, and I'm not sure if this comes from a legacy from an English system. Why is the sheep system not like the pig one? And now I know down in England and Wales we've got 3 different systems for 3 different. We've got BCMS for cattle, we've got ARAMS, which is atrocious for sheep and deer and goats, and then we've got EML2 for pigs. So I'm not sure. I believe you said at the start of the call, Bob, that this system covers sheep, pigs and cattle.
Yeah, we have a multi-species system, which is what a livestock information program, or LIP or LIS. Sometimes it's called Livestock Information System in England. They're starting to build their multi-species system now.
So, I mean, I don't want to get too much into sheep, but I mean, I assume in Scotland the sheep system is very similar to this, is it, or the same?
It is similar, except that all sheep are individually identified. There are some differences in Scotland, in that that markets read all sheep, and so do abattoirs read all the electronics in sheep. And we know that generally speaking, the read rates are about 95%. They range from about 90 to 100%. So where if a sheep doesn't read, it doesn't cause us any issues, because what we've been able to prove, and we had to do this with the commission. I've got some lovely stories about that if you ever get time. That the individual tag reads are simply more information to the whole batch move. And so they allowed us this little bit of flexibility in Scotland, because essentially our sheep system works very similar to the pig system. However, I think there will be a change, and in sheep we don't pre-notify and we don't confirm. Okay, and I think Scottish Government, because the pig system works very well, I think when they've got some legislation time, I think they will change the legislation for pre-notification and confirmation. And I suspect that DEFRA are looking at the same thing, because I think the ARAM system, I'll be absolutely straightforward with you. I think if there was an audit now that we're a inverted commas third country, if there was an audit of sheep movements in England from Europe, I think they would stop the export of lamb carcasses. For goodness sake, don't quote me, but I'm just saying, because the ARAM system doesn't really trace.
No, it's I mean, I had this discussion with ARAMs a while ago. So, normally these systems trigger standstills and stuff like that. And I asked the question that, of ARAMs, what happens if I'm moving stuff off, but I've just moved stuff on? Is your system intelligent enough to pick this up? And obviously, it was no. It's just an audit system, and you can still do stuff by paper, and you can still record information on there. It's just. Like I say, I don't want to get too much into sheep, because this is focused on pigs. But I do like the fact that you have a one-stop shop for, don't get me wrong. I like EMEL. It's intuitive, easy to follow. BCMS is probably even more simplified. You just tell them you've moved your cow, and that's it. It's the passport that goes with the cow. ARAMs is just atrocious. It was cheaply purchased. It was the old Irish system, and they had dumped it and thrown it out. And I can't remember who it was at the time who got it was like somebody like Carillion or whatever won the contract, and it was just cheap and cheerful. The bit that annoys us in Scotland is that when sheep come up into Scotland from an English market, we know that the sheep have moved off the market, but we can't get the holding behind it. So if there was a disease outbreak, we can't trace back to the holding. And so that's what annoys us. And we've been spending a lot of time working with DEFRA to help them actually get to the new list system, livestock information system, that'll help us through that. However, there is a transfer happening now. LIS, livestock information system has decided, not decided, but are pushing on with the whole switch over from ARAMs to LIS now. That's happening now. And I think that's because of the export issue that might arise if there ever was an audit. Well, thanks for that anyway. So I'm just conscious of time that, we had said it was for an hour. We've got 5 minutes left. We can overrun if people need to. Back to Josie, is there anything else that you want to cover off, or?
I don't think so. The only thing I'd point to you to is that I've moved from this. Is the keeper guidance. If MD needs any information, there's a few points here where you can just find the information that you might need, or just give us a call.
Is there any movement with regards to in Scotland having electronic ear tags for pigs?
Yeah, Kim, I think it's an interesting one. We've done a hell of a lot of work here actually for electronics in cattle, which includes ultra high frequency UHF, and the reason we're looking at UHF is that, I know this sounds a bit technical, because it's non-collision, it's anti-collision. In other words, there can be lots of tags in the area that you're reading, and they don't mix each other up, as it were, like we do with low frequency. And also the read distance is much greater. Now, we first saw this in Denmark many years ago, where they were experimenting with UHF, where they were taking young baby pigs or young weaners, 6-week-olds, down a wide race, and they're just walking down naturally, and they were able to read them all. The issue is, I think if the processors could believe that the plastic that surrounds the chip isn't affected by heat, and when they're going through the dehairer, in the processors. But I saw Lorna, my good wife, roasting a chicken. It was inside a plastic bag the other day. There's some amazing plastics. I have a sneaking suspicion that at some point in the future we'll be moving to individually identified pigs, probably using UHF, because it's a system that works. It really works quite well. I'm not sure what's going to drive that though, Kim. I'm not sure what's sitting behind that. Because I think we can prove movement. The system you've seen here, we can easily prove the veracity in the movement systems. So I'm not sure what would drive it to individual identification, but I know it's been spoken about.
Yeah, my question stemmed because I think it was maybe 7-8 years ago, I attended one of the meetings of AHDB Pork, and it was their talk with their commercial pig industry, but they had released some electronic ID tags, which they do for their meat pigs, which I think it had just come out, and they used it, and it just sounded so efficient, where it was just used for the tags were in, they were plastic, and it was when they were just going through to the abattoir. So they do a kill and they do a reading, and they could say, I think it was how old the pig was, where it came from, and it just had all the information like you've just shown us, and how we got on ML2 forms. So I just wondered whether that would come along, because I would like to see it happen. I think it could work.
Yeah. Sorry, so I had to step away for a minute there, so I'm not sure if this has been covered. The question come through about metal tags for slaughter. It's very similar in England, and the question is around when to apply them, because obviously they don't stay in that easily. Is there a preference from Scot EID as to when those tags should be applied?
I would have said they need to be. Well, I said they need to be applied before they move. Bob, what would you say?
Yeah, that's right, Josie. I think it's application before they move. It's up to the keeper, really. As long as it's a form of identification.
Yeah, I mean,
the keeper may have, he may have metal tags in long before the movement, respect to identification, but as long as it's there when they're moving. Yeah.
I mean, because you can move on temp marks and all that. I mean, typically before I had breeding stock with tags in it, and obviously to identify them individually, I used to put metal tags in, but I would only ever put them in when I was loading them in the trailer the night before, or the morning they went off, because they don't have a very good shelf life, those metal tags, because they are literally just meant to withstand the slaughter process, because there's no ink on them. It's just an impressed number. So thanks for that. Are there any more questions from anyone? I've been reading the questions that have come through on the chat. Does I mean, for someone that lives down in obviously down in England and used to the English system, like this has been nice to see from my perspective how things work elsewhere, and nice to be able to explain to someone, if I'm selling a pig to someone that's maybe taking it into Scotland or a part of Scotland, I can then sort of give them a high level guidance as to what to expect around that process and how this, how that would work. So thank you very much.
Yeah, just delighted in it, and essentially, I don't know what the HDB guys were saying. I think the interesting one just now is, we're moving into a slightly different world, of course. With the devolved governments, we're going to have 4 systems. The Welsh system. Well, I think in pigs, Wales and England will always sit together. I'm not convinced about that, but I think that's what's going to happen. So 3 systems. So you get the Northern Ireland system, our system, and England and Wales. And the challenge is to make sure that they all speak to each other properly. And to do that, there's going to be, you might hear this term eventually, it's called the UK view, United Kingdom view, so that we, Animal Plant Health Agency and the devolved nations can look at any movement anywhere in the United Kingdom. So we're currently looking at the build of that.
That'd be interesting. And that consistent set of data between, there's always going to be those small anomalies based on a given area, but there needs to be an agreed consistent set of information that goes with the movement. So that just makes passing from system to system so much easier to track and trace. Yeah. And I'll just leave you a wee thought and why we love smaller pig keepers. Is you saw there some of the big moves and things like that, but we do love our small pig keepers too. If any are on the call, who are smaller pig keepers. And I always remember their enthusiasm when we went live with the pig system, that many years ago, 8 years ago or whatever, 9 years ago. We put information out in the various kind of magazines like Smallholder and Pig Keeper and stuff. And the enthusiasm we got was terrific. And to be just a little anecdote is that the Scottish government at that time had no idea how many small keepers there were. We knew there were, in Scotland, we knew there was 80, 90 commercial herds, but larger commercial herds, but we had no idea how many really smaller pig keepers. I don't know how many there is, Josie, just now, but it was about 700 odd at the time.
I don't know how many actually, but there's,
And,
I know there's slightly more moves recorded,
Yeah, and then the enthusiasm we had from the smaller keepers was terrific, because they really wanted to play a part on disease management. So don't let any of the bigger commercial guys say that the smaller guys don't recognise the importance of disease management, because we found them absolutely terrific.
Thank you. So are there any more questions for Bob or Josie?
I'm just going to say it's lovely to hear that Scotland leads the way yet again in this type of thing.
Not in everything, Bob, but we do our best on this one.
It's as I said, I love the system. It's absolutely great. And when I know that dealing with new people into pig keeping, this is one of the big. They seem to build it up so that it's something that's to be feared. But I've sat down at the kitchen table with new keepers many times and gone through my own records on the Scot EID system and just to put their minds at rest, because absolutely there was nothing to fear. And it's great to actually understand that it is all about disease control, which I think we're kind of a little bit. We lose sight of the fact it's disease control. Sometimes, people say, well, it's government intervention or it's people keeping an eye or Big Brother and all the rest of it. No, absolutely, it's about disease control, and that's fantastic. I don't know. One thing I am going to add is this wild boar situation that we have up here, and the transfer of disease to our herds. We've seen it in Europe. Especially with the ASF and all the rest of it. Are you guys aware of anything that's going on regarding wild boar and the effect with our smaller herds?
Yeah, Well, Bob, I don't know what's practically going on, to be honest with you. You know, there's a lot of, you know, there's wild boar areas, you know, like down in Dumfriesshire, you know, I guess Forest of A and things like that, you know, where there's a lot of wild boar, or I'm not sure if they're wild boar. I don't know what, you know, they're hybrids, I think, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I'm aware of a lot over on the west as well.
Yeah.
And I just, when we come to talk about ASF, its control measures on that, it's just at the back of my mind that, you know, if you guys are aware of anything that might be taking place.
Yeah, not practically on the ground, and it's maybe something we need to keep our ear on. And thanks for raising that. I think we'd certainly need it would be helpful if we had a policy rather than just ignoring it. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Even some guidelines. I know there was a guy doing some research. I think he was at Stirling, and he was doing some research into ASF and wild boar and the impact on that. But obviously, there's an impact on the deer estates and everything as well. But I'm just aware that we need to possibly keep an eye on it.
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, there's certainly quite a bit of research work going on just now. But yeah, they're interesting. They're interesting beasties. They're certainly very smart. I've been over to Poland.
Absolutely. I think one of the ones that, you know, the people forget that pigs learn.
Yes.
So where you might use a method of trapping them or herding them or something, they will learn that is what is taking place, and they'll change change what they do accordingly, you know. So they are not stupid, our pigs.
No, definitely not. Okay.
Something that sorry, Bob.
No worries. No, you crack on.
I was going to say, do you have something called like a disease charter, Josie and Bob, that Scot EID have? So if a disease broke out in a certain pig herd somewhere, the members or people who sign up to Scot EID are alerted in that area?
Yes, that's, I think I mentioned earlier, you know, there's the Scottish Pig Disease Control Centre.
Right,
which is just based around the corner from where our office actually is, but and so we're in close contact with them, and we have the, as I said, in the kind of mapping software, we've got some very sophisticated mapping software which they have access to. So if there was a disease outbreak, to be honest with you, and I've seen it before, where the industry actually reacts much faster than government. You know, because the government machinery takes just a long time to crank into, and our industry is you know, sorted. You know, in other words, we close the movement down immediately, and the information flows very quickly here, and it's quite good to see, actually. You know.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody else got any questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to know the whiskey that Richard Wright's drinking there. Sorry, Richard, I've got my export here. So.
Well, I've run out export, so I'm on the Glenfiddich.
You're on the Fiddich. Yeah. It's only 5-6 miles up the road, Richard. Have you seen? You'll need to see their new distillery.
Well, hopefully after lockdown we'll get down that way.
Yeah, it's incredible, absolutely incredible to see. Beautiful place, no money, no expense spared whatsoever. You can easily know where people are making money.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Josie and Bob for giving up their Friday evening to talk to us about the Scot EID. I mean, personally, I found it of interest purely because I'm obviously south of the border and never had any real view of that, so I found it very useful. So, and I also wish to thank everybody for taking the time to join and support us in our in this event. If nobody joined, there would be obviously little point in hosting it. So thank you very much to everyone for their evenings. And I wish everyone to stay safe and well during these troublesome times. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I think that you'll all agree that was a very interesting chat for those of you with regards to movements in Scotland, etc. Very informative session. Thank you to Bob and Josie for giving up their time to support us. Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast. Hope you continue to enjoy these. Keep an eye on the group as to what's going on. Also, we're out there on Instagram, Twitter, as well, for those of you that use those different social media platforms. Well, until next time, I've been Andrew O'Shea. Happy pig keeping.